Greetings, my friends. Father Leo here, and this is my homily for 12th Sunday of Ordinary Time. And I'm going to beginning to take you down a new road. For some weeks now, maybe months even, we've gone down the road of explaining, exploring, coming to understand and see something about the cosmic Christ and how Jesus, in his lifetime, was God become human, and Jesus then was both human and divine. And when we read the Gospels, sometimes he's talking and acting strictly out of his humanity, and then we have to be aware there are other times when he's talking and acting out of his Christ. And of course, we know he came from Christ, spent 33 years here on earth, and at his resurrection returned to where he came from. But we did explore the notion of the cosmic Christ and how important it is for us, because it introduced us to what I call the great story, or the large story. Now, up at this point, our story has been a very small story, 2,000 years, the story of Jesus. And we've heard that story over and over again, and drew our own conclusions from it, and whatever way that investigating and searching and internalizing the Jesus story of how it has impacted on our own life and how we have chosen to live. But having brought forth the notion of the cosmic Christ, 14 billion years of evolution, I think it's time for us to turn now and take a look at what we call the great story. Now, so the Jesus story, 2,000 years old. Pretty small when you think of it. But the great story is 14 billion years old. So obviously, there's a lot more to the great story than there is to the story of Jesus. And so I'm going to begin that today, and I hope over the weeks that follow, to continue to explore and present some aspect, just some aspect of what I call the great story, the story of the universe. Now, we know that in the beginning we used that word God, and we said, okay, God is an arrow that points to some other reality. And I sort of pointed out that there's two different ways of approaching that other reality: the scientific one and the faith one, faith tradition. The scientific one is intelligent consciousness. And the other one is, from our faith perspective, is the Great Spirit. The Great Spirit. So that's kind of, and is it even close? I doubt it. But it's the best our experts have been able to do, and that's why I start there. But basically, it's all energy. It's all energy. And then 14 billion years ago, science tells us there was what they call the Big Bang. And that has been a fantastic manifestation of the invisible becoming visible, of the Spirit becoming one with matter, of God being embodied in matter and in creation. And so God is within. God is within. And in that Big Bang, set into motion what we call evolution. And we've had 14 billion years of going from very primitive, well, it was just basically soup, if you want to call it that. Some scientists call it creation soup, that Big Bang. But it was energy that exploded. And of course, all that took place from there. So that's where we start today anyway, is 14 billion years ago. And the great story. And that God's presence, of course. God is the inner force, if you will, moving the force forward into the future. And one scientist I know says God allures God allures creation into the future. That kind of maybe explains it a bit. It's not so much God is behind pushing as God is ahead alluring evolution to further itself and move forward into the future. So whatever it may be. So like I say, the universe started out as energy at the Big Bang. And it has been expanding and becoming ever more complex, more aware of itself over those 14 billion years. So we see that it's a movement. It is a story that's unfolding, a powerful story that's unfolding. And of course, what I want to start with this morning is to kind of really bring it down to where you and I are living the universe every day, because evolution is the universe becoming conscious of itself. The universe is alive. You know, sometimes people think of the universe as planets or galaxies or the earth or mountains, as things, as objects. They're all alive. They're all alive. And we learned that from the study of the cosmic Christ. And all is one. And so what we see, first of all, with the universe, that right from the very beginning and over those 14 billion years, it has been expanding, becoming more aware of itself. And the question is, well, how does it become more aware of itself? Oh, that's where it becomes very interesting, you see, because that's where we come into the picture. We come into the picture when you ask the question, how does the universe become more aware of itself? And so, of course, we do this by looking at how it unfolds. And we know that even here on planet Earth, then, let's just look at the Earth for a minute today. On planet Earth, single cell divides. Now you have multicellular life, and it continues to expand and become very, very complex beings here on planet Earth, all the way up through the various species, where one species morphs into another, or they use the word evolved into a higher form of life, and eventually, of course, all the way up to humans. And this is where you really get the sense of the universe becoming conscious of itself, of the universe getting to know itself, if you will. First of all, through the eyes. You know, the early creatures didn't have eyes. Then species evolved. Eventually, they had eyes. They could see. Eventually, a species evolved that had eyes, and they had consciousness, self-reflective consciousness, so that when that species, humankind, looked out, this is a universe looking out at what the universe has fashioned. The universe is looking out, but in order to look out and see what is to be seen, the universe needed eyes. And eventually, after 14 billion years, what do you know? A species appeared on planet Earth who had eyes. And not only eyes, but they had self-aware consciousness. And so as a result of that, they could see. And this is the universe seeing itself. And in seeing itself, there is that sense of intimacy, that sense of getting to know itself. And because of being able to see the universe, it's able to appreciate what it has fashioned. It's able to appreciate a beautiful sunrise and a sunset because it can see it. It's able to appreciate a beautiful flower. It's able to appreciate all of creation because it sees it. In other words, the universe sees itself. It sees itself through a microscope or a telescope. It sees itself. And that is the universe becoming aware. The awareness of the universe. After eyes, well, I'm not sure which came first. It doesn't matter. Ears. So a lot of species came into existence, didn't have ears, didn't have hearing. Eventually, through the evolutionary process, some living creatures developed ears and hearing, and eventually humans, what we call humans today, ears and hearing. Now the universe can hear itself, can hear the sounds that it has created and fashioned. It can hear thunder and lightning. It can hear birds singing. It can hear a stream. It can hear a wind. All the beautiful things that hearing can do. And here's the universe becoming able to hear itself. Hear itself. Another thing which evolved, of course, was tongues. A lot of the early creatures didn't have tongues. Or else eventually creatures did become, the universe did fashion tongues, if you will, through evolution. Creatures with tongues. Eventually you have creatures who have tongues, and they also have a level of consciousness, reflective consciousness, and they will tell you about how the human race slowly but surely learned language. And not only learn language, but learn to make sounds and turn language into words and speak words. Now the universe can talk. Now the universe can talk, self-aware, the aware of consciousness of humans. Humans can talk to one another. They can talk to the universe. And it is the universe talking to itself. For example, when I talk here at this moment, it's the universe talking, and the universe is talking to you, and when you talk back, the universe is talking back. So the universe is able to talk. And isn't that a wonderful thing? Isn't that a wonderful thing to think that the universe is able to do all of this? Now, there's more to it than that, of course, but that's just an insight for our starting point today. So there's a few things I want to say in conclusion. That evolution started out very simplistic. But over those 14 billion years, greater diversity, species, changed complete in many ways as there is evolution. And as one species morphed into the next, always growing into this diversity of different kinds of species. And I don't know how many species there are on planet Earth today, but there are a lot of them, a lot of species, and it's that diversity. But they're all part of the universe showing, manifesting itself, and the universe showing itself in diversity. There's also complexity. You know, scientists tell us that at one time there was only one cell on planet Earth. That the one cell divided, now you have two cells, multicellular life. And look what we are today. All the cells that make up the human being, make up the animals, make up the birds, the flowers. Honest to goodness. Photosynthesis. It's unbelievable. Well, no, it's not unbelievable. It is believable. But that whole sense of complexity that's taking place. We see change. There's always change taking place. And, when many of us who are old enough can remember how change was fairly slow. And it was gradual. And there's a lot of time to adjust to a new change before another one came rushing out of the future. But now we say the rapidity of change. Things are changing so quickly. We've gone from mailing a letter to emailing. That's pretty fast. And what's next? With computers and all the new complexity that's coming out of the internet, it's unbelievable what lies in store for us. Change is happening so rapidly. And I think the other thing is we have to realize that the universe can be trusted. And this is really key, because when we study the history of the great story, the history of the universe, it is characterized by chaos, not order. And the human beings somehow or another want order, want things to be predictable, and they can manage things which are predictable. And they'll have the illusion of order, or they'll spend energy and time trying to place order upon chaos. You can't do it. It can't be done. Chaos is integral to evolution. And we see that chaos all around us. For example, we see the chaos of the forest fires, the universe. In some way, I don't know whether you can say the universe started the fires or caused the fires. I really don't know how you can handle that, but somehow it's part of the chaos. We think of poverty and homelessness, chaos in the universe. See, we're all part of the universe, so don't separate and say, well, the universe is over here and people are over here. We are all the universe. There's only one. We stress that over and over again when we studied the cosmic Christ. There's only one. And so we are the universe become human. We are. That's our story. And I'm sticking to it. I'm sticking to it. And so, but see, so often with humans, when chaos happens, say in nature, people say, oh, that's bad, real bad. Those forest fires are terrible. And they are. Or people say, well, those homeless people are, it's terrible. They shouldn't have to live that way and sleep out at night in the cold. True. However, part of it is how we are able to recognize the chaos of the universe. And it should really help Christians if they really believed in what they say they do, of Good Friday and Easter. And so, in many ways, what appears to be bad to humans is simply the chaos of the universe. And it is happening. And I'm not going to say that the universe is planning something good to come out of that. No, I don't know anything, and the authors are still out to lunch on disagreeing or agreeing with that one. But in some way, when there is chaos in the universe, chaos in our world, whether it is fires or drought or too much rain, war, all the things that we call bad. But over time, we see that those so-called bad things gave rise to good things. And that's really the thing that the universe is teaching us. Now, I even see here in Peterborough where that is happening. And by my ministry with the homeless, in my eyes, that's a bad thing. But then I realized with the universe, it's not. because I see the awakening that has taken place with the citizens of the city. As that topic is in the news, in the media, homeless are showing up all over the city. And people are waking up to it. They're talking about it. They're becoming more aware. And many people are responding. The number of people that are preparing food and actually walking down to where the homeless hang out and giving them food every day. I see a lot of people who find that they've got clothing they don't wear anymore. And they're bringing that clothing down for the homeless. Blankets. Now, in religious terms, we call they're experiencing a conversion. But really what they're experiencing is an awakening. And as people awake, the universe is awakening. As the universe awakens, people are awakening. It's a dynamic that works both ways. And so, let's see it for what it is. And that, if on a cosmic scale, but how about on our own scale, when bad things happen to us? I know from my own experience, the first reaction is, that's a bad thing for me. I wish it hadn't happened to me. And I don't wish it on anybody else. But then, as you work your way through it, as you don't waste your suffering, as you make good use of your suffering, raise your consciousness, become more sensitive, more caring, more compassionate. As Richard Rohr said, one thing for spiritual growth is great suffering. Well, I guess he should know. He's had cancer 2 or 3 times. He knows about suffering. So it looks like bad things. It depends on what we do with them, it seems to me. And the universe is saying, don't judge anything as bad. Don't judge, period. Learn to manage it, to deal with it, to find ways. And in the way where you experience a Good Friday, whether it is your own personal difficulties with living, or difficulties of living with your family or friends, work with it. Work with it, and in working with it, there's a growing awareness and a growing capacity for compassion. And so there's transformation and growth. And that's the universe growing when you grow. That's the universe becoming more conscious of itself. So today, with those few words, I introduced the great story, the story of the universe, which I intend to pursue in the weeks ahead. God bless.